Yes, there will be audio in this video. I just wanted to do the intro quietly. Oh! Two different... Hello. There is likely to be very little talking from me during this. Just saying. Okay. Okay. Like a mechanical cross made of pipes and things. And a blood red sky. Ruins? Some great contraption. God, framing. Are the Lunarians in Hoseki no Kuni an Angel's Egg reference? Statues or people? Angels with the halos, yes? A great army? Framing, again. Was that a question posed to that character or posed to us? I would assume the latter. Is she within that thing that just came down? Also, holy shit, her hair. Also, all of the shading? So it was her hands that became his hands? At the very beginning? Okay. Oh, she has laid an egg. I would make a joke here, but it doesn't seem like the time. She is fucking ghostly. What the? Ho. I was just looking at the hair. Tenshi no Tamago. Okay, here we go. This is already amongst the trippiest and most ethereal things I have ever seen in my life, and we're less than a few minutes in. Okay. So she sits upon the egg again. And now carries it with her. So is she the eponymous angel? That was insane to do with just silhouette. I know exactly what just happened there. Wow. Such a focus on the emptiness of this world. Obviously, it's Oshie, and we've seen him do empty landscapes in fascinating ways before in the Patlabor films, but this is different. Much quieter so far. Oh! That was a little surprising. Who cast dissonant whispers? Please don't. Very berserky trees. Fucking shading. Not shading, shadow. Is she running toward or from? Or does it matter? Is this where we meet? Holy shit. Alright, where did that come from? Hydration. It's important. Moving, shifting in the water slightly. Roots, ink, Rorschach, roots. We're zooming into them. Whoa. Whoa. Those ruins of something? Something broken. But I can't tell what. Oh. A sluice. What is that layer over everything? The focus is on the water, not on her. This has just been like a masterclass on 2 colors made into water. Now this feels like that Pat Lepore sequence. Emerging it from shadows, disappearing into them. Isn't that a different piece of glass? That's definitely a different piece of glass. And that was juxtaposed so we get a montage effect, but that may not have been her that put that there. That might have been him. Since they're the only people we know of. Assuming they're people. I'm not assuming anything. Okay. Someone lived here once. No longer. It's this fascination with emptiness. Tired. Whoa. What a shot. Something mechanical? A vehicle? Oh, this builds up the tension so well. All these places that something could be coming from. A tank? Oh god, over the horizon. Fuck you! Oh shit. Dude, those look like bosses from a shoot 'em up game. What the fuck are those? Are they organic? They look sort of organic. What the hell? What are they? Is there any consciousness behind them? Is this a statement about war? Please don't point that at me. Oh, he's here. Hello. What is the cross that you bear? They are organic. Hi. I don't know about you yet, mister. Yeah, protective. Sinister. Protective. Untrusting. So we wait for that to leave before we initiate a scene? Okay. Framing. Oh. That seems like a good move. But he'll follow, right? Or no? Is he just standing right where he was? Huh. A little bit of whimsy in this song, finally. Ooh, jelly? Calories. That looks like hand cream. Yeah. Don't need that. Ooh, healing potion. I wouldn't trust it. Wait, that's the jar that was under the thing, or similar. What is with the architecture of everywhere? And why is it so, like, hyper, it's like Cthulhu Gothic is what I would call it. Like, all those Cthulhu Gothic. Aww. Wait, does it have a crack in it? What happened? Wait, what? Oh, are they all frozen too? I assume so. Seem to be. Are those spike things growing out of them? And the hooks and things? Because there are fish hooks everywhere and spines. Are those impaling the people? Growing out of them? I just said we probably shouldn't ask a lot of questions and immediately started asking questions. questions that will probably never be answered. Hey, found some jelly. Motion. Ripples. But the ripples continue coming from her. Oh, is she peeing? No, probably not. Gonna go with a no. Just ripples in the water. And then they fall still. Ah, hello. I was wondering when we'd see you again. Yeah. Go get your egg. Oh my god. We got our first line. Good advice. And he gives it back. Trust earned. Take the egg. Possibility. Okay. Second time. Yup. No thanks. No breaking my egg. But he's not wrong. Wait. Was that wet before? I don't remember that being marshy. I remember wind blowing through it like a normal field of grass. Okay. Release your expectations, Teeaboo. Hello? Are you following me? Would you not? Does he know? Unknown. They stopped and kept going? Or is he just following and she's stopping to look back and see? Yeah. Tension, tension, tension. He's still there. Yeah. That was fucking perfect. Gonna take off running. Or just float, I guess, and grow hair that's like a billion times longer than it. Oh my god, and it's normal again. What? Offer water? No. Doesn't require sustenance? You're a little weird there, dude. That's pretty weird. Hmm. Very cute. Selves, reflections, okay. And two masks? They move. And they're carrying those. Yeah, now you're under. The fish? I just realized where you are, huh? It's aight. Yeah, it's all good. To the other side. Wow. Yeah, show me more. Harpooning shadows. Even though they aren't anywhere. That was the craziest fucking thing. For now. theater. Or a church. Pews don't usually have arms between them. Probably a church. A place of worship of some kind. Oh. A fish. A stained glass casting a shadow. We will never know what she just said to herself, will we? Oh. Okay. Dude, the non-geometric architecture is really freaking me out. Oh, that's more normal. Does that put her in line of fire of spearmen? It could. To the music. So humans coded as soldiers constantly chasing after something that is not there, attempting to slay it and failing, and not learning. Completely useless, and yet they continue. Whoa. Yeah, got him that time. That's what I'm worried about. So, destroying their own city, whatever it is. Can we leave town now? I don't like this town very much. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Can't help them. Will she look back as well? No. Okay. Rocks balancing. Odd. Implies that they've been put there. As a henge of sorts. Who are you again? Oh. He gave it back to you. No promise made. Okay. Are those bones of a giant fish? Kind of look like it. Kind of looks like we're inside a gigantic creature. Those look like ribs. And it's, yeah, that's a giant spine. Ooh. Ooh, something drawn. Something made. Something manufactured. What is that? It's circuitry or a tree or... I have no fucking clue. Tree. So what we were zooming into, maybe? How long have you been around? I think it's in your egg. Or it's that thing we saw at the very beginning. Or it doesn't matter. The dream of all? Huh. Oh, water jars. All partly filled. And more bones and fossils in everything. Bubbles from nowhere. Walking amongst the ribs and bones of the death that has come before. Great shells, giant ammonites. That's the first time he's taken that off his shoulder. Why the rows and rows and rows and rows of bottles? Oh, this is hers. They're all hers? It's not an answerable question. More than there people before you. Well, that's God during Noah, right? Yeah, pretty sure. Yep, that's the Great Flood. Okay, we're in a Christian post-apocalypse. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And it returned carrying a branch. The great bird? I don't know. I don't believe that this is the Noah story. Yeah, this is different. Okay. So that's where our alteration point is. Fossils. But then that's okay. He says, staring into the camera. Because you are only parts of a story. Well, that's gonna throw me into an existential crisis for a little bit. Mm-hmm. I know not. The bird? Hello, reflection. Is it the egg that we saw at the beginning? The skull and feet, though, are not avian. Uh-oh. Why do I get a bad vibe? Like, he didn't promise anything kind of bad vibe. Is there a living thing within the egg, or is it as dead as this world? Unknown and unknowable. And if you break it, you ruin the chances. Can you? It wouldn't be if it's in there. Yeah. Doesn't have those yet. It's an embryo. Okay. Sure, fair. But we're talking about hope and faith and belief, right? I don't expect we'll ever know. The flood grows. Putting her back where we met her. Wow. Doesn't matter. Why a new jar each time? Why a new jar? Fade in and out just to show time passing. Do it again. finally the fire dies. And she turns away from the egg. What are you gonna do? Are you going to take it or are you going to reposition it for her? Not a big fan of that decision. Don't you break that thing. Don't you do it. Don't you let your own curiosity fuck with someone else's life's purpose. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Interruption. What now? What now? What now? What now? Oh, God. Or it changes nothing. And it was just hope. All underwater. Did he not? Did he leave it untouched at the last moment? We don't get sound, so we don't know. Perhaps if we see her wake up, we may know. There. Is it broken? Okay. Opening scene. Again. The change would be if there is no egg. There is no egg. Now what? The tree? Yeah. You fucker. Whoa. Only the reflection remains but breaks through? Her once she's underwater. That fucking cut. Will it begin to hatch? Everywhere they've been? The rain has ceased. Sunlight? Hello, I thing again, I assume. Whoa. He lives on, doesn't he? Time is irrelevant. What are we gonna see when we pull out further? What are we gonna see? It's just giant kanji that just say, fuck you, signed Mamoru Oshii. Sorry, it's the first joke I've made this entire video. Or is there nothing to see? And are we again indicting those who seek deeper meaning than art in art? Perhaps. I thought all the lines converged, but they don't. They're all straight. The line of the waterfront is very straight. Are we on something? Like a carving or on her face or something? Or on the egg? Are we on the egg? Oh. I don't know what that is. The Ark. Maybe? I don't know about that either. That fiend? We fading out from here? Credits are... credits. Okay. Okay. All right, I need some background stuff. Kamu, Nutab, Kierkegaard, Nutab, Heidegger, Nutab, nihilism, Nutab, existentialism, Nutab, yeah, that should be a fair enough start. Mm-hmm. Carl Jaspers as well would be useful. Okay. Sartrean existentialism, religious existentialism. Existence precedes essence, or the opposite. Essence precedes existence. Absurdity of life. Life is void of meaning. And if there is meaning, man would be unable to understand it if it does exist. Individual moral freedom and responsibility, which does seem to be a layer here. Individual morality and the choice made by the male character. And the consequences of that choice are I don't understand. And that's the end of the film. Wooby dooby doo. Okay. So there are gonna be 3 stages to this discussion. The first one is I'm just gonna pause in what I was looking at right now, which is just I want to brush up on like my general synopsis level understanding of a couple of various existentialist, nihilist, and similar and absurdist philosophers, which I think is a really important grounding for this guy here, for this film. So I'm going to pause that for now and talk in overall terms about the things in this film that I think I get, which are not many, at least as far as intent and purpose and meaning in the sense of meaning are considered, right? So let's talk about the simpler things. Let's start with aesthetics, just in general. Utterly unique. I think that an individual who has seen this film can look at literally any frame of this film and tell you that it's from this film. There are not necessarily a lot of movies where you can look at, I don't know, a particular ripple in the water, you know, scenes that don't contain any characters. If you could, like, if you cropped this frame to right here, to just this part that's above her head, you could still tell that it's from this film. That's because there's a pervasive, perfectly consistent aesthetic throughout the entire thing. The scratchy, sketchy shading, the darkness and monochromatic grays and blues, the Dramatic use of shadow. The choice to make everything seem worn and torn and destroyed and weathered and ethereal at the same time. And it is. And it absolutely is. Like, I'm just skimming through frames to see if I can find a random frame that I would not be able to recognize was from this film. And the answer is absolutely not. Every single frame of this film is recognizably from this film. Aesthetics. Oh, music. Let's just mention music offhand. It's insane. And the way that it is structured and used along with the visuals is biggity bonkers. I wonder if it's Kawaii doing this. I don't know. The only thing that I knew about this film going in, and I didn't get to do this little spiel because I did the intro silently, which in retrospect, maybe not the best in terms of pragmatism, but whatever. The only thing I knew was that it's by Oshii, that it's weird and symbolic-y, that there's not a lot of dialogue in it, and that's it. That's like it. That's it. That's all I knew. I don't know who else has worked on it. I don't know who else is on staff. I didn't do my normal things where I go and look at any promotional images or anything, because I just wanted to avoid all of that. I'm going to go do that now that I've seen the film, and I guess you could say I know what the film is, having seen it. I have experienced it. I do not know what it is. I have no idea on this one. I'm just gonna be level with you. Any explanations I come to or conclusions that I draw are just coming out of my brain skull and probably not right. Not that there's necessarily a right interpretation of this film or any part of it. That said, I do want to go look and check out some of the names associated with this piece, because there are layers and layers and intersections of intent and effective conveyance through different fields all coming together here. And on that note, I want to talk about something a little bit different. I've been using the terms like layers and intersections. Those have been the main terms that I use for this concept that I'm going for, which is that individual talented people aligned toward a common goal can create a piece of media with much more depth of meaning in it than any one individual or a group of individuals not entirely aligned. So when a bunch of great artists are all collaborating on an anime or an animated film, I think that animated film becomes transcendental in and of itself. I would like to propose to you that instead of using that, and this thought came to me because I was thinking about, like, I am a multidimensional entity that is fascinated by two-dimensional media. But then I thought about it and was like, well, it's not two-dimensional because it's also locked into time, and it's also not two-dimensional because there's all this other stuff going on, like sound is its own entire dimension, and really, because of the way that the art is actually crafted, there are a lot more layers to it than that. Like, color is a complete dimension of experience within anime. So I'm going to use dimensionality to describe this kind of, like, intersection of talent and intent that I so crave and love in media. This is a hyper-fucking-dimensional bullshit film that's way too crazy complex. Okay. I want to look at who's on staff. I want to go read up on some philosophies because I think it's important to do so. And then there's like what I'll do is I will go through every note that I made. That's what I'll do. Every note that I made verbatim. Crossman, who are you? Asking us? Question mark. I wrote down a couple timestamps. Who are you again? Underlined. Break egg to know what's inside. I wrote that down when he said you have to break an egg to know what's inside. No water when he refuses to drink it. And then cursed? Question mark, as though perhaps he has been cursed forever. And then the fish? Question mark, was that when the fish came out. 102 broken frame. I actually do want to find that really quickly. I think there is a single flaw with this entire film. I think there's one, and I think it might be intentional. Let me see. It's when it's rising. It's when this thing is rising up. I wrote down 102. I think it was like 102.37 or so. Okay, right here. There. That one twitch. You see that? Twitch. I'm pretty sure that is the only recognizable flaw in this entire 1 hour and 10-minute thing. Pretty fucking sure that that is the only mistake of any kind. And it might be intentional. Because imperfections in media are like a thing philosophically. Like leaving one tile wrong in a gigantic mosaic, or leaving one small piece not quite right in a mandala. Like, it's a thing. And that's the kind of shit that Oshie would do. Yeah, I think it's intentional. I'm gonna choose to believe it's intentional. I don't care. Okay, that's that. And then those are all the things that I wrote down. And then I wrote down 2 lines as a reminder to myself to talk about this now, which I thankfully remembered to do. These 2 lines are art as compressed information versus information that can only be conveyed by art. Okay, so part of my theoretical, like, reason that I care about anime is because it's a condensed form of information. I think information is really important on a higher level, let's say, than just knowing things is cool. I think that part of our purpose, if you will, as humans or as sentient entities in general, is to gather, compile, condense, and compress information, and then hopefully pass it down to future generations, so that, well, whatever. I think that's crucial. I think that art is one of the densest forms of information conveyance and storage that we have, and I think that there is a lot of art that is densely compressed information and experience and knowledge that can be conveyed quickly and can be conveyed more quickly through art. When you think of the example that I like to give for this, because it helps things click, is like the great ancient painters figured out human proportions, right? And sculptors figured out human proportions. And it took them a lot of effort and a lot of time and particular genius level ability and talent to actually figure those things out. But once they figured them out, they were figured out. And now, hundreds and hundreds of years in the future, any art student can go into an art class and figure out the basics of human proportions in like a week. No genius needed, very little study and practice needed. It's information that's easily available now because somebody else figured it out. Whoa, right? Okay, so another example would be perspective and foreshortening. Same realm of things, right? Figure out perspective. It took a long time. Wasn't until not that long ago, a few hundred years ago, that people really figured out how to draw in perspective. Things look weird when you're looking at them, and when you draw them like you think they are, they're not right. So what do? Well, you figure out how the fuck physics affects the way that light reflects off things and figure out perspective and stuff. But then they figured it out. And since they figured it out, any art student can go into any art class, and the art teacher will probably put a bunch of random blocks of different sizes around the room and have you draw them, and you will figure out how to perspective. Because it's known. It's collectively known and collectively passed downable, right? So art can be an incredibly valuable form of compressed information. It's also capable of compressing information that isn't necessarily right on a mathematical level, if that makes sense. Like, it's one thing to pass down information that, like, steel is heavier than plastic. Like, oh, whoopee-doo, that's information. That is universally essentially true, right? Great, whatever. The sky is blue because of this phenomenon, right? That is effectively just true. And while you can convey those things through art, there are other things that can only be conveyed through art. Types of emotions and feelings and stuff. I think this entire film, start to back, front to back, start to finish, is entirely consistent of information that can only be conveyed by art. That is, it's not like somebody took their worldly knowledge and compressed it down into a piece of art and are trying to convey it to us in a way that's unpackable, right? Like, many simpler stories have a very clear moral to them. When you read an Aesop's fable, there's a very clear piece of information that all of the trappings around it are meant to make you realize, right? When you read an Aesop's fable, it's like, maybe the scorpion shouldn't sting the frog, and maybe the frog shouldn't trust the scorpion. Okay, we get it. This is different. This isn't meant to be unpacked. This is meant to fuck with you. This isn't meant to fuck your own expectations, your own understanding of yourself and your world. It's only conveyable through art. And so I think that from the outset, the prospect of attempting to unpack this film, it's like explaining a joke. The joke is funny because it's funny. The film makes you feel something because it makes you feel something. Because it is compressed information, it is condensed. But it's not necessarily an unpackable format. It's not necessarily a format where you can just go, all right, 7-zip, unzip over here. Oh, I get it all now. I don't think it works like that with this film. I don't think it works like that with a few Oshii pieces. But this is probably the most dramatically on that side of things that it could be. This film reminds me of a couple things. It reminds me of... oh, I don't remember what it's called. Yeah. Who made this? Ron Frick. Frick. So, Ron Frick made these two films. One in 1992 called Baraka, and one in 2011 called Samsara, as well as a few others. And he was the cinematographer on them. But also the director, and also he came up with the idea for it. And it's considered a documentary, but it's also not. The entire thing is functionally a montage that goes through elements of reality and humanity, and it took apparently like 5 years to capture it all. And there are scenes of the greatest, most beautiful art and culture and creations and science of humanity, and also scenes of natural disasters and human disasters and destruction and war and death and awfulness. And it's all montage, and there's no dialogue to it, and there's no narration to it. It's just beautifulness and horribleness all together. It's an entire piece of just emotional heartstring pulls, shot beautifully and cinematographed beautifully. I highly recommend going and checking these out. Ron Frick also cinematographed Revenge of the Sith. Just putting it out there. It's funny. But Samsara is the one that's in my head. And this reminds me of that as a montage of things that evokes. Evocative is probably the best word that I have for this film. Evocative, because it evokes something. What that something is, give me some hours to figure that one out, maybe. But it evokes something. From the beginning, the emptiness, the darkness, the shadow, the incredible eye world constructed of angel statues? I don't know. I don't know at all. I don't know at all. Okay. Some other things. Both of these characters seem to be immortal to some extent, if only for the purpose of the story. He appears to be cursed or carrying some kind of burden, and we don't ever know what that is. It's possible that it's simply the burden of humanity, of being human or similar. And he's the element of that. Society, humanity, the lone wanderer. He fits archetypes, or he seems to. He seems to fit the archetype of the quiet, helpful Ronin who's seen dark things. But at the same time, he doesn't. And at the same time, he seems to be a priest. But of what? Not possible to answer. That he carries a cross is thematic and symbolic, right? A cross to bear. But we never know what it is. And that he is the one who makes the pivotal decision in this film seems striking. Literally. She also appears to be immortal. If each of those jars is a day of existence for her, going and acquiring water and potentially little bits of food, and she's been surviving this entire time off of that. And she's been there for a long, long, long time. We saw that spiral staircase. It was many, many, many twists and turns deep. So she's been there for a long time, waiting, hoping that the egg will hatch, and it has not. Okay. Is it her egg, or did she get it elsewhere? I think we're meant to believe that it is hers, but I don't know. Why would she lay an egg? Well, if her desperate hope was to give the egg back to the bird and bring it back to life, to somehow right the wrongs of the past, if we buy his version of the Noah story, that the bird was sent out in a godlike sense, that the bird was sent out and never returned, then returning the bird could be the way to fix things, to unforget what we've lost. So it seems to symbolize a hope and also the fear of that hope being shattered. The hope for possibilities in the future, and also the fear of peeling behind the curtain and seeing what those possibilities really are. The fear of when the egg actually breaks. And I think the implication is that it would never hatch, that it would never do anything, that she is just waiting for something that will never be. And so when our male character makes his choice in the dead of night, and we sit there by the fire waiting for it to go out for hours, until she turns away from the egg, and he finally makes his decision, nonplussed, very little expression on his face. He stabs down into it and shatters it. To fulfill his own curiosity, to push her forward, to just create some kind of change? I don't know, and I don't know if we can know. But I think it's the choice to act, to do something, to take the symbol of his burden and use it to burst through the boundary. And it seems that it works, that the power was within her, within the child all along, not within the thing she was trying to wait for. And she seems to be the one that causes a change, though we don't know what it was. The feathers, the eggs popping up that were bubbles. It's as though she's breathing life into the world from the depths as she merges with her reflected self in the water, falling down, down, down. Or perhaps she has died in that fall and her death reseeds the world with life. I don't know. That one seems to work for me, but I don't know. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna go read up on Heidegger, Kierkegaard, Sartre, a couple other people, and some general existential and nihilist philosophy. And absurdism. There's some of that here. And then I'll come back to you and we'll talk that through. And then I'll go read up on what other people's full takes are of this film. And then I'll come back to you with that information. We'll do a bit of a survey of what other people have taken from it. Okay? Okay. See you in a minute. Okay, well, I just immediately found something highly relevant, potentially. Reading up on Carl Jaspers. And just here's a quick line from the Wikipedia page. Just throwing it at you. Beginning with modern science and empiricism, Jaspers points out that as we question reality, we confront borders that an empirical or scientific method simply cannot transcend. At this point, the individual faces a choice: sink into despair and resignation, or take a leap of faith toward what Jaspers calls transcendence. In making this leap, individuals confront their own limitless freedom, which Jaspers calls existence, and can finally experience authentic existence. So, as we question the nature of the world of the film, we confront a border, a barrier, a shell that science and questioning cannot transcend. Correct? The egg, we cannot know by inspecting the outside of the egg what is in it, whether it will hatch, what it will do, what it will cause. At that point, our male character faces a choice. He can either leave that to what is going on, sink into the seeming resignation that he is existing as, or he can take a leap of faith, confront his own freedom, make a choice, and push beyond the boundary by breaking the egg. I think that works as, honestly, if you just want to stop there, we can just stop there. I've been Teeaboo. This has been Angel's Egg. That's my take on it. There we go. It's all about transcending the borders of your own existence by answering the questions that can't be answered and taking the faith that what lies beyond the boundary is going to be interesting, maybe. Or we can take that as one and continue from there. So let's do that instead, because it's more fun. Alright, I'm gonna jump on in here. Hi, it's me, Editing T. Yep, back for more of this. This time I'm not gonna shit on Recording T or anything. He's doing great, but I am going to be hopping in and out and helping out with this one. This is a really long discussion, and it goes all sorts of directions that don't go anywhere. And also, it's been like 2 hours since I finished recording, and I've been doing stuff and just letting the film simmer, and so I've got like more coherence on the thoughts. And also, going back through my own thoughts, it's a lot easier in retrospect to pick out things that are like kind of silly or things that I just missed. For example, I totally never looked at any of the staff members. Just go and look up Tenshi no Tamago on Mal, and you can look at the staff members there yourself. They're very interesting, and they're very, very neat and very cool, and there's lots there, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here because in the previous section, Recording T mostly focused on using Jasper's little thing as a touch point for what actually happens in the world of the film. Like, Boy, as a character, takes that leap of faith to cross the, in the film world, literal boundary of the eggshell. I'm here to talk a little more meta about it, because I think there's a really interesting meta perspective that we can have on this, and it's super relevant to the entire rest of the discussion on this, and so I'm kind of amazed that I never came up with it, but here you go. As we, audience members, approach the film, we come across a boundary of symbolism that is impossible to empirically understand. It is not possible, given what we are shown in the film, to come to any concrete conclusions about the nature of what is within it. It is stuck in a quantum state like Schrodinger's cat, entangled between varieties of vague, nebulous ideas, any and all of which could be relevant and valid, or more importantly, useful to the individual. But we as individuals struggle and try so hard for specific meaning a specific answer, a specific faith, a specific thing that might be within that egg, that we ignore the other possibilities that surround us. So, only by taking a leap of faith and accepting that the film is showing us something interesting can we reach the state of existence or pure existence in our experience of the film. How about that for an idea, eh? Alright, that's it for me. Editing T out. Talk to you later. And Kierkegaard talks as well about the leap of faith. That to have faith is at the same time to doubt. That faith is not a decision based on evidence, but instead a leap that you make without. Cool. That's a lot. I still think that the first thing that I found, the Jaspers thing, is the most useful of the philosophical things that I've experienced here. I was hoping that going through these, I would just have like some ding, some like click moments, but I haven't. That Jaspers segment is helpful in thinking about the pivotal and climactic moment of the film, where the male character does whatever he does. I need to go look at Mal or ANN and just like, one, do they have names? I don't know. Also, who worked on this? I don't know. Okay, 7.67. Studio Dean. Interesting. Girl, boy. They are girl and boy. So calling them main characters and stuff is, or male character and female character, yeah, no problem. When it was brought to the US, 45 minutes of live action footage was added in an attempt to release it as a post-apocalyptic thriller called In the Aftermath, Angels Never Sleep. No! 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 Okay, I'm gonna look at all the staff and stuff. Are the eyes of the angel statues open or closed, or can we not tell? We cannot tell. And they're all standing as if each was holding a blade pointed down or a spear, but they're not. There's nothing there. And it's not that there was something and isn't now. So it's like they're all holding in prayer. It's like this. Why is it a giant eye? The observer? The great collective observer? The ark, perhaps? The remnants waiting? We don't know. Is it us? Looking in? A strange alien thing? Observing a strange alien world? And being seen in turn? Recognized by the man who looks up at it? As if they're praying for all of us, for the world, maybe. And then it descends and stays descended. And there is her. Angel Statues Cemetery. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about some visual motifs and like through lines. And the ones that I think of are roots, vines, water, flow, feathers, hair, ripples, shadows, lenses, reflections, and perspectives. I think that's it. Think. So, oh, and hair. I don't know if I said that. One batch of these is, well, water is like everything. The boy posits that perhaps we are in a post-flood world. And honestly, that's buyable as an interpretation. That's believable as an interpretation. It's also believable as a myth written after the fact to explain the insanity that they're experiencing. Again, it's unknowable, I think. But we can buy it if we want to. And perhaps the ending sequence as we pull away does posit that we are upon the ark, forgotten, underwater, lost. But we can't know. Regardless, water is everywhere. It is a source of life, right? And she goes out to seek it, to capture it, and brings back always a new jar each day. Though she could just use one. Why? As a way of marking time? Not for herself, for us? But that's too meta. Why? Unknowable, I think. But she's... It's more than that. It's more than just life for her. She's fascinated by water, it seems. We see her repeatedly staring into it, staring at her own reflection, and doing so in the glass as well. Sometimes it's the reflection that she's most interested in, sometimes it's the water. We see ripples, we see plants of some kind, perhaps, underneath the surface. We see lots of ripples, much flow. Trees and roots, or perhaps ink or shadows upon the water. And we draw parallels between the way that her hair flows when she looks places, or in that sequence where she's just staring straight at the camera and it is only hair everywhere around her. It flows out from her like alive, but also like ripples of water. This film is obsessed with water. And in the same note with shadow and light and flow. The female, the girl, practically glows in every scene that she's in. We get the impression that she is perhaps the eponymous angel, but unknown. And that, I don't know what that is. It looks like a boat, kind of, but I don't know. It feels like we should have some revelation when we pull out for those wide shots, but I don't know what we were seeing there. Okay, we see all of these roots and trees and gnarledness. When they're all just shaded, it almost looks like branching deltas and rivers in the shadows. It's fantastic. The way that she moves in and out and through darkness and light is incredible. And the way that sometimes it's not as obvious to us is also fascinating. But eventually, slow motion, she passes by us and drops down. Ding! And a ripple is made. Now, ripples symbolically are an action that carries outward, and it seems like this film is centered around a particular action that carries outward. The effects of it, unknown. I think it's impossible to know. The fact that new eggs seem to appear implies that it's an opportunity, like it seeds the land with rebirth, like it initiates a cycle of regrowth, and that the observer rises up out. I'm calling it the observer. I have no idea what it is. The observer rises up out of the sea to look upon the world changing, potentially to re-inhabit it. Who knows? But I don't know. Why does she join them? I don't know. Why does she become immortalized with her egg amongst them? I don't know. But basically her first action in the episode, besides doing things with the egg, is to go find water, put her feet in it, and stare in. Look at herself, to fill a glass jar, and to look through it. So, not only reflections, but lenses and perspectives. Shaping and reshaping the world around her by seeing it differently. And then drinking. Hydration is important. The film is utterly beautiful. Hauntingly beautiful. From the absurdly detailed water to the inexplicable, I don't even know what this is that we're seeing here. Roots, hair, flow, feathers, her hair? That this shot comes after implies that it is her hair. Is she sinking backward under the water? Is that what this is? What that layer is that covers her and encompasses her? It covers the parts of her as though she were sinking underwater. But I don't know if we get to know. She does sink down, 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 clutching the egg, enveloped by kelp. And then snap. Whoosh. So it was a dream, an imagining, a calling to the water. Her and the egg come beneath the surface. Perhaps. Perhaps. But it's unknown and unknowable. These objects below the surface, these bits and pieces of ruined things, what are they? I can't tell. A sluice, a bridge. A place, a town. An obsession with emptiness, rain, darkness, shadow, negative space. And she finds a new jar for the day. Studies the distortion that it creates and finds it acceptable. She fills a different one. Perhaps. Everything in the city is dilapidated but still standing, overrun and crumbling but still there. Shattered and broken but still here. We look out from certain windows as though there are people here, but at the same time, from impossible angles that tell us that there could not be. We see these gargoyles, fish-like, animal, but twisted and almost draconic and weird. Everywhere throughout the city. And they are strange. We see these tank things. Obviously machines of war. They have turrets upon them. But they're a horrible amalgamation of mechanical and biological. They pulse and tense when we finally see the last one stop and he disembarks from it. We have this close-up and it is moving and shifting in organic ways. It is strange. And he's just catching a lift. And he is scary. And she is afraid. They are gone. She finds another jar. It contains this red fluid. Don't know what it is. She's watched by the gargoyles and approaches them and drinks from one of them, or tries to. Looks through them, sees things, but the jar doesn't fill properly with water? I don't what? Where did the, how, why, it, but I, you, but I, what? And then bubbles, but how? I don't know. But the bell rings out as she drops it. And eventually the soldiers, or people, or whatever they are, come to life. They're seemingly immortal as well. They're stark, strange, fishing spears, covered in hooks and wires. Strange. She leaves the egg, and he steals it, and gives us the very first real line of the whole entire film. There are like 15 lines in this film. Holy shit. He bows as he presents it to her again. Something about him just screams patience. Endless, resigned patience. Like when he kneels for this egg, somehow I get the feeling that she could walk away for a year and walk back and he would just be kneeling there staring at the floor where she was standing, holding it out. Like he's a person who has no purpose except to wait. That's just a feeling that I get, you know? What do you think is inside? The empirical question that can't be answered. You have to break an egg if you want to know what's inside. An absolutely accurate statement. You must cross the boundary to know what crossing the boundary will be. Otherwise, it will only be possibility, and it will never be fruition. Now, we're skipping through a lot of it, and so it's hard to really show, but every bit of animation is fucking ridiculous, in part because the hair, just the hair. I mean, look at it. There's so much of it. And they redraw the lines. They don't just like futz with them. They redraw them consistently. It's insane. Ah, this sequence. I wrote this one down, I think. Yeah, 27 minutes. Still there with sound is what I wrote down. So I need sound for this, apparently. Oh, maybe he isn't following anymore. Let's check. Oh God, he's there. Oh, I wasn't worried. I wasn't checking on you. The bars of this building, I think these are the ones we walk under. They too look like great ribs of some beast, but we know because of the establishing shot that they are bars, metal bars, right? twisted and warped and shifted and strange, like everything else in this universe. But still, metal bars, which creates an odd contrast when we do find ourselves walking amongst the giant ribs of long-lost beasts. Her little smile. I don't get this sequence. He follows. She walks. She smiles softly. Is moving. We get this shot, and then this shot, and her hair extends surreally, insanely as she floats, and then snap, normalcy. What was that? Broken lights, whole lights. Sitting together, she offers him water, and he refuses. The other thing that's so striking about this film is these long, dramatic, still, quiet, timeless, extended shots of simple things. Now, in some of them, something occurs slowly within the scene, and that's one choice. Some of them, nothing occurs, and it's just the passage of time that instills emotion. Most notably, of course, the scene where he's sitting by her sleeping, and the fire eventually goes out. We do a fade out, fade in, and then we hold for longer, and then the fire goes out. The color scheme changes. She shifts in bed, and he finally gets up. It takes minutes, and it's beautiful, and it doesn't feel like a mistake or drawn out too long. It's just is. And she withdraws. Is she miffed that he refused her gift, her offering, something that she thinks is precious? I assume so, but I don't know. And then the water falls, the rain comes, and her little is very sweet until it opens and it begins. Reflections again. And there are, on the wall, half obscured by the reflection of his pant leg, there are two masks. They're not clear enough to tell if they're the classic drama masks. It's unclear, but there are two masks there. Interesting. Perhaps because this is where the masks fall off somewhat, and she clings to him instinctually? Perhaps. The fish have come out. They don't exist. They aren't anywhere. And yet the hunters come for them. All as one. None with distinguishable faces. Themselves as still as statues most of the time, but awakening to find the fish that do not exist. These haunting shadow fish. Specters that they cannot actually reach, stabbing and stabbing at them, but only serving to throw spears through their own, apparently their own, windows, to destroy their own city, to bring it further down. Now this just speaks to me of Oshii's propensity for putting shit about humans destroying themselves in his films, because it's like, it's what he does a lot. Also, some insane cuts. Wow. Demonic fish creatures overlooking all. And this is what I mean by strange, non-geometric architecture. Like, we've got all these columns and archways and pillars. We've got this classic, classic Greek-style roof with engravings and stuff in it. And then the centerpiece, the doorway and stuff, is, like, off-kilter and off-center and weird and shifted and almost sunken. Terribly strange. So it must be a church of some kind. A former worship of fish. Ghosts of gods? I don't know. I can only just look at it. I don't know. I don't know how to interpret this. I don't know if you can. But again, we come to the top and we reach a reflection. She leans in toward it. Makes contact. And says something. If it were an English film, because of the lip flaps, I would think that she said, I love you. I love you. But we don't get to know. And he just watches. She's clearly speaking to the reflection, right? Not to him? I think so. This whole sequence is bonkers. I would put it on the same level as the whole, like, military occupation of the city in the second PiP Available film. I think it was in the second film. In terms of just creating a sense of something indescribable through a silent sequence. It's amazing. And they hunt tirelessly, destroy tirelessly, and fail endlessly. Not learning, not changing. And so we leave the city, return to here, find the great bones of a great many things, find a great carving of a giant tree, and speak to it. There's an absurdism to the way that he moves his hand across this thing. He just moves the hand way too far, I would say, is the absurdist part here. Because, like, he continuously moves his hand upward, right? We're now, like, how many hand lengths? Continues moving upward. Like, nope. We saw the scale of this thing. This cannot be. He's reaching for something he cannot reach. But reaches anyway. And tells us so much. And so little. Yeah. There's no way. It's huge. So this is an impossible sequence. And yet, there it is. Still there. So he makes a choice. Fossils and fossils, water on water. This is the sequence that I was talking about. We walked through the metaphorical skeletons before, now they're the real ones. Light and shadow. Death and beauty. Piles and piles, rows and rows of these jars. The story, the thought, the lack of knowledge, the lack of his own understanding. And then he stares directly into this. Stares directly into the camera and says this. Maybe you and I and the fish are only the memory of someone who is gone. Maybe no one really exists, and it is only raining outside. Essence and existence. And But the bird did exist. A bird did exist. We know not if it was that bird. We know not if the egg is its or hers. We know not if the other eggs that we see wrapped up in vines and entangled in the world are. We have no idea. We know them only as symbols of eggs, the promise of life to come, the promise of future. And we see this bird nominally, just for my own purposes, really quickly. Burb skulls. Yeah, they don't look like that. They mostly don't look like that, and they mostly do have the beak still. They just keep the beak because it's still part of the bone. That doesn't look like a beak to me. Yeah. Bird feet skeleton. Those really don't look like bird feet at all. Like, okay, first of all, looks like it would be a bird of prey of sorts, right? Okay, two things. One, birds, their legs go like forward and then backward and then forward again because they stand on their toes. Like Kit Kats. Those legs, those go like humans. That looks like a human. But with wings. But with wings. An angel? Perhaps. Perhaps. I don't fucking know, man. But there it is. And he sees it and feels something. Is that what makes him come to a decision? It's in here. It's in here in the egg. The possibility. I thought so. Which implies this is why he's here. So we wait. And she comes up with all these things and he tears them apart, these hopes or dreams, and he tears them down. Soon I will show you, very soon. And he lays her out with care. And our focus switches entirely to him. The ripples, the water, the flood. Lays her out with care. And in a mirror to an extent of her hand in his in the opening, right? Hers reaching out, grasping. His clenching into a fist and crushing. He grasps her hand for a moment and holds them together softly before doing what he seems to feel like he must do. Who are you? Who are you? Neither of them know. The water falls. The men return to stone, it seems. Half submerged, uncaring. And we sit, and we wait, and we think, and we fade, and fade back in. And then eventually, yeah, there's the fade and fade back. Eventually, the fire goes out. And she shifts. And ever so slowly, he chooses. Somber. Careful. And shatters the egg. And all is submerged, half underwater in the night. And off he walks, among other rooftops, leaving her to awaken as she did at first, alone and with no egg, till she steps upon it and wails and screams and runs, and suddenly we see some things. But that object is not the one, not the shadow we've been seeing, is it? I know not. I just don't know. And she falls. And finally meets her reflection. A reflection who seems older than she is? I'm not sure. Maybe it's just the way that they're drawing her because she's under the water. But her hair is not ragged. It doesn't have those bits and pieces that are sticking out everywhere. Even though she's floating and flying through the air as well, there are all these little teensy strands. This scratched scuffiness. Like she's got tons of split ends, right? Her reflection doesn't seem to. And I got that feeling like this is a perfect version of her. An idealized form. And which is which becomes unclear as they touch here and the reflection becomes all. She bursts through in what was in the previous scene the upward direction, right? But now it is down, it seems. And she falls. Streaming bubbles. Until pushing up from within her deepest self all of her breath, all of her life, all of her existence, and she breathes that out and breathes it forth. And eggs, life, existence in bubbles, the same kinds of bubbles that she was fascinated by in the jars. Something rising from the depths. Beats me. Beats me. She does look older. Her nose is more pronounced. Her chin more defined. I don't know. But it spills forth. Becomes eggs. And there are more. The entire city becomes seeded with these vines, seemingly tearing apart everything, draining it of life. Perhaps to provide sustenance for the eggs? Or is this thousands of years later? I think so. I think it might be. He seems to be immortal, right? Time seems to mean nothing. So she bursts these eggs forth, seeds the land with their life, and they grow, and they grow. Birds waiting to hatch. Definitely birds. And we know that it is later. We know that it is. You know why? Because that stained glass window. We know that is the church place that they were. And it is now torn down and now rubble. We know that. That's the koi, the fish stained glass window that she stands next to. That's the building that we saw. So we are millennia in the future, awaiting their hatching. And only he. Why the feathers that all lead back to her, the paths heading back to that location? I don't know. I don't know if it matters. They are fucking beautiful, though. And the way they flow is incredible. And the way that they, at one point, they stop and shift in the wind. Mind-blowing. Or the way these waves crash over him. Mind-blowing. And the observer emerges. I'm calling it the observer. I still don't know what it is. And all of the angel statues. The reason that I went earlier and looked for like angels in cemeteries is because I don't know. It's like praying. It's like staring out. It's also like maybe mourning for someone lost. A lost world. But amidst them, seemingly in a place of great position, is her, a specter of the young Madonna. A virgin birth of the world once more? That actually kind of works in a weird way, doesn't it? That she is the Madonna, a virgin to whom is born the world anew? The resurrection of all? Perhaps. Perhaps. But she seems to be in a place of esteem, joined amongst them. A weeping statue, perhaps. All he can do is look upon what he sees. But she's not weeping. She looks like she is in the first scene. Here, it looks like there are tear stains down her. Yeah. It's very Mary. It's very Madonna. Even the shape of the hair and like the almost implication of a hood, you know? Yeah. But we do see her face close up and it doesn't seem to be sad at all. It seems like a slight smile. I don't know. And then we pull out to reveal that it's a jelly bean in the ocean. I'm just gonna Google Ark of the Covenant. Not that. Nah, that's not the right thing. The Ark. I mean, there are lots of replications of it and like drawings of what people think it would look like, but nobody really fucking knows. I mean, the one thing that I'm pretty certain of is it wouldn't be lopsided down the middle. Wait, is it flipped upside down? What if it's flipped upside down and tilted slightly? What if this is the center line of the ship, the bottom of it? And then the whole thing is like here and it's even, right? What if it is even all the way around? An even shape like this, right? With a single line down the middle. It does have the right curve to it, or appear to. Are we the remnants upon the back of a capsized ark? Perhaps. Or are we in the water living? Okay, now I'm going into crazy land. Okay, we've done initial take, post-philosophy take, and run-through. I'm gonna go research. I'm gonna go look at a couple of mal reviews just to see, and I'm gonna just Google like Angel's Egg analysis and look for a couple of articles, skim them quickly, and probably come to the conclusion that anybody who's analyzed this and has a head on their shoulders will tell you that this film cannot be quantified or anything brought into certainty, that there aren't answers here. So let me take a second and go through that. I might jump back in to just mention things as I find them, but otherwise we'll come back in a minute to do that some more. All right, I'm actually going to start on the Wikipedia page, which has, of course, the direct thing. Mamoru Oshii lost his faith in Christianity prior to the production of Angel's Egg. Film seems informed by the existential desperation caused by the collapse of one's belief system. Well, shit, man. Oshii himself has stated that he does not know what the film is about. Well, thanks, bud. Appreciate that, as usual. Let me go to the mal reviews. Top rated mal review. Starts with a quote. When it comes down to it, I think the director doesn't know everything about the movie. Everyone always thinks if you want to know something, talk to the director. I don't think that's true. I think the answer lies in every single viewer. Yeah, all right. Good. Yep, solid. Solid. One of the most beautiful and lyric films in the animated medium. Absolutely. And let me go. The film was made in a way that any interpretation can be correct. Angel's Egg is all about faith and blind faith. The man can be seen as Christian as a symbol. The orb seems like the eye of God, sure. The checkered board seems to describe a piece on a chessboard, perhaps. His hands are bandaged. I didn't catch that. That is true. His hands are bandaged as though he has stigmata, potentially. But he's also lost and unclear about his faith and has a burden to bear. She seems to be the innocence of blind faith. The egg has hope, sure. Man seems to be there to question or test the faith. And we see her on the eye of God as a statue, which symbolizes her keeping her faith despite being tested. And then she is praised to be a part of the statues in the orb that probably represent the rest of the free. No, I don't think so, man. I think this dude is way wrong. But I mean, that's valid. You can do that. Okay, editing T here, jumping in once more, just because, you know, recording T just said, like, I think this guy's super wrong. Well, it's been like 3 hours since then, and I've been editing this video and re-going through it, and I don't think he's that wrong. I think he's kind of right on the fucking money. I think that the egg is the thing in which she has blind faith, and that boy appears, shatters the egg, shatters her illusions, shows her that there is nothing within it as we see it to be empty, and allows her to become free and to, if you want to go there, to become her whole and complete self that is able to bring new life into the world. The female version of her that we see in the reflection is beautiful and almost angelic and seemingly older than she is and more mature, finer featured, without the bags under her eyes or the... Honestly, as beautiful as the character designs are, she is a homely young girl. She has flaws to her, but her reflection does not. I do believe that she ascended and became something more complete because she realized that she did not need to hold that blind faith. Whoa. And so thousands of years later, he looks upon the result of her works. Metaphorically, whether she is in the legions of heaven immediately, whether that fall that she takes over the chasms of reality kills her, or is just symbolically her transcending the boundary that holds her back from that thing that she has been looking at for so long, her own reflection, the possibilities behind the invisible barrier that is every mirror, every pond, and she finally breaks through that, and from the complete her emerges new existence. Yeah, I'm into that. I kind of buy that now. Okay, bye. I'm gonna let recording me continue doing what he's doing. You can do that. Ooh, actually, this guy has a good point about the symbolism of fish and fishermen, given the idea of the biblical Christian idea of fishers of men who won't stop chasing it no matter how futile it becomes. Oh, that's hyper contradictory though. That doesn't work for me. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's clinging to past beliefs. And I think we are meant to be indicting them. I don't think the film is positive toward the fishermen. I think they seem to be lost souls. Constantly seeking something that they can never catch, sure. If we want to make that faith in God, maybe, sure. But I don't know. I don't buy that the observer is the eye of God. I think it's more audience-based than that. I could buy that the checkered landscape that he's on is him as a pawn. Is he standing distinctively in one square of it? Do we see? He kind of is. He's kind of on the border between two of them. It kind of doesn't seem to matter that much. It's also not square. It's curved. I don't know, man. Like this as thing made up of collective something. And a memorial makes sense. That they might be praying for the world or mourning for the world makes sense. That they would be representations of those who are free and saved? I'm not sure. Actually, that does work, doesn't it? Because he stays. And him as a representation of a Christ figure, he takes that sin upon himself in order to redeem the world, doesn't he? By crushing the egg, he harms her but frees her from her lack of knowledge, right? She goes from faith to crossing a boundary, taking a leap of faith that she was forced into, right? She was forced into it, but she still took the leap, still crossed the boundary that is the water, the all-important water and reflection in the series, became one self, a more perfect spiritual self, and in the process of doing so, of sacrificing her physicality, redeemed the world. So he sinned by slaying her, essentially, and gifted life back to the world by doing so. Potentially. That's an interpretation. Oh, this guy does mention that when the last scene zooms out, they seem to be on top of something that could look like an upside-down arc. I buy that. Another interpretation can be that the man is actually Noah, who had long lost his faith and has been waiting for the dove for so long. Maybe. Maybe she is the bird sent to him. Maybe. This next one that I'm going to read was apparently a symbolism section for Angel's Egg article on Wikipedia, which was then deleted because it no original research, you know. The egg can be seen as a symbol of the young girl's innocence, something that she protects and holds on to but is ultimately stolen, or that the egg is the spiritual seed planted in the human soul via the gospel, a kind of meme that tries to take root in a person's soul. She protects it amidst a dark world, but it is eventually reaped by a Christ-like character, and then she bears fruit many times what was sown. The production of many eggs. Maybe. Organic tree-like structures. These likely represent the spiritual being awaiting the realization of its true form in the afterlife. Perhaps. Attaining angelic forms, flying birds. Perhaps. And the girl's angelic appearance as part of the, quote, Godhead, which they're calling the giant eye thing. Maybe. Each egg might be a human soul that will be preserved through the last judgment. Maybe. One interpretation is that the male figure is negative because he tells the girl that he would protect her and eventually steals the egg. I don't think so. He never makes that promise. He never makes that promise. He very distinctly does not make that promise. She goes, promise you're not going to break the egg. And he goes, and then we cut away. Like, he very dramatically doesn't make that promise. Okay, cross on his back, bandages on his hands. Or we can see him very positively as a companion and a protector, attempting to bring fruition to what she couldn't have done. Without opening it, one may never realize the true potential. He forces her to overcome her reluctance and to spread the knowledge or whatever it is. Now, the fishermen or fish are popular reoccurring symbols. Woo! Or the shifty fish are those of lobe-finned fish, which are extinct almost entirely as a group. The shadows most likely represent ephemeral and even demonic forms. False idols of sorts, mirages meant to lead people astray. That works. And then the spears are sharp things, yeah. Trying to project into the environment, trying to form soul-like attachments and identities in ephemeral things. Pleasures, vices, fears, but all stone, all unchanging, all dead, essentially. Water is everywhere. The arc exists. Also posits that the arc is the thing that we see at the end. The dove or the bird I don't get that interpretation. Fuck. Wow, this is really good. As an in conclusion, while there may be a few more allegories to draw from the film, we have provided tentative interpretations of the main themes above. It is interesting to note that the deeper nature of the film has eluded the usual anime fan base since its release. Due to the exceedingly esoteric nature of the spiritual allegories present, having them explained by someone familiar with Christian theology still puts the viewer in a difficult position. I think trying to explain them at all puts the viewer in a difficult fucking position. This is not a film that can be explained. All of those are interesting interpretations. Whether you agree with any of them or any of what I've said, I think it's fine either way. All that I ask is that you think about this film, because I'm going to be spending a lot of time thinking about this film. And yes, I'm moving in toward wrapping up now. I've recorded for 3 hours straight now. What can I say here at the end? Usually I like to go like, I like this movie. I felt something. Definitely. Can I put that feeling into words? No, I don't have the words. I think this is a piece of art that conveys information that can only be conveyed by art. And I don't think that, try as one might, one could possibly decompress and extract the real meaning and intent from this film. When the author himself says, I don't know what it means, it's going to mean something different in relation to every viewer, then it seems rather silly as a viewer to say, I know what it means. Fuck no, I don't. It's been fun to tease it and to play with it and to move it around and like fold it and knead it in my brain. I think I'm gonna end up probably watching this film again every couple years or so, because I get the feeling that this is one of those pieces of art that can change in its meaning and relationship to the viewer as the viewer changes as a person. I think the me that I was a year ago is not the me that I am now, and I think that the me that I will be a year from now is not the me that I am now, right? I think the me a year from now will probably glean something entirely different from the film Angel's Egg. But I cannot even come close to fathoming what he could experience. In the same way, I could not fathom come close to fathoming what you might have experienced while watching this, you know? Oh. I'll end with this. This is a masterpiece in a weird way. A lot of masterpieces are masterpieces because they convey much concisely and beautifully. This conveys much not at all concisely, beautifully, and sometimes doesn't convey it at all, or might not convey it at all. This is definitely in the realm of art house, and definitely different from just about anything else I've ever seen. I really do think that the closest thing to it is the film Samsara, which is just a really interesting one, and I would recommend going and watching it. It's interesting. But I will say this about Angel's Egg. Whatever you think it is, or whatever pieces of it you've latched onto and think are important, or not, it would do us well to recognize the incredible multidimensionality in the way that I mentioned before of this work. The amount of talent brought to bear on this is insane, and the creation of something as beautiful and strange and impossible to define and dismiss as this film is to be lauded, I think. Defining and dismissing is kind of a thing, isn't it? It's something that I do, certainly. But it's something that I think is a bit of a pervasive plague in our general world and especially in modern media criticism. The propensity to just figure out a concise way of saying, this thing is this, and then putting it away forever and never thinking about it again. That seems to be like the goal of criticism a lot of the time. Oh, this film is just another knockoff superhero movie, dismissed, when it might not be. But we love doing that, and that's part of human nature to categorize. It seems to be more pervasive now. Oh, it's just an isekai trash. Is it? Not probably, if it seems like an isekai trash. But at the same time, to look at a film like this and go, it's a pretentious piece of whatever. And I did, as I was scrolling through the Mal reviews, see some just like, it's some pretentious artsy bullshit. I don't fucking know. Which is fair. I think this also ties into the contract with the viewer, or the contract with contract of expectations that occurs in media. The expectation going into Angel's Egg is that you're going to pay attention and try to figure it out, right? Like, if you're not curious about this film, then the mysterious nature and the lack of explanation just seems like dumb. This is lame. But if you are curious, then it's like, what the fuck is going on? This is cool. And it is. And I really think it is. I really think this film was very cool. Okay, I'm gonna go and, like, edit this, I guess? Yep, that's what we did, and it was a lot. And allow my brain to leak out of my ears. It happens. I keep the headphones on throughout the discussion because otherwise the brain matter starts leaking out, and you don't want to see that. So, we will wrap here. I have been Teeaboo. This has been Tenshi no Tamago, Angel's Egg, 1985 Mamoru Oshii. I sincerely hope you have did this as much as I have. Enjoyed is what I normally say here. I don't know if that necessarily fits. I hope you have experienced this as much as I have. How about that? And, yeah, as a weird change of pace from Gosenzo-sama Bon Banzai while staying on the Oshii train, yeah, this was fun, I guess. Yep, I'm fading out. Okay, that's gonna be a wrap. No, I have not covered this in its entirety. No, I have not done justice to it. No, I do not know if justice can be done to it, and I'm okay with that. I hope you're okay with that too, and I do hope you've enjoyed this reaction at the very least. See you next week for something different for Retro Monday OVAdrive. Peace. Might be pausing time. That might be the first one. Yeah. It's like the same technique that he used throughout Gosenzo, where he uses the wrong sound effect for an action. Except in this case, it's far more than that. It's things are not what they seem. Okay, I'm going to write down 2008, and then I want to stop for a moment, which we already have. We've already paused for a moment. And at this point, I'd like to say hi. Hi, how's it going? I did the intro thing silently because I thought that would be fun. One of the only things that I know about this movie is that there's very little dialogue, so I thought that could be relevant, you know? But, whoa. Okay, we're essentially a third of the way through. This thing's only a little bit over an hour long. We're essentially a third of the way through, and I think this is a good stopping point because we just had a major shakeup, I would say. Our characters met, crossed paths, and disappeared from each other. I assume that they will cross paths again. The things that I want to talk about now that we've paused, because I have the chance to, because I am just engrossed. And that's going to continue happening, and I hope that you'll forgive me, but my focus here is not to, like, react to everything. I know my videos say, at the beginning of them, Teeaboo reacts. That's mostly because it's, like, the best way to try to explain what I'm trying to do here, because I do the reaction portion of the videos, but I'm dramatically, extremely more focused on the discussion. So if I don't talk at all throughout the film, bear with me. We'll get to that. So far, this has been ethereal, is the word that comes to mind. Otherworldly, strange, transient, odd, and incredibly intriguing. The visual language of it is fascinating. The lack of color so far, and the tiny bits of spot coloring, the jam, the red in the jar. Besides those and some elements of her dress, literally everything in the environment is shades of gray, blue, and black, and that's it. And then there are those weird fucking organic monster tank things that are kind of orange, and the sky, which is blood red sometimes. Color is crazy in this world, or at least in our viewpoint of it. The introductory sequence is fascinating and strange. That object or city or thing, that the gigantic floating eye-like creature, with rows and rows and rows of stone soldiers, like the memorials that they used to make for Chinese emperors, but also not, more like religious iconography, statues. The legions of heaven is what it rang as, but the darkness and the ominous nature of it is the opposite. And we had that appearing before a man carrying a cross, which has its own layers of symbolism to it. Of course, there's the weird thing in Japanese symbolism, which is it really Christian? Or do they just think it looks cool? I don't know. But he is bearing a cross and carrying it upon his shoulder, and it's a cross that appears to be made of the same kind of semi-biomechanically construct thing that a lot of this world is. So, a priest of a forgotten religion carrying something with him? Unknown. And then we have this girl. And the most striking thing about her by far is her hair. It's long, and it gives the impression that it hasn't been washed in a while. It's tangly and kind of matty, but at the same time gorgeous in that weird, almost half-dreaded sort of way, and flowing in the most incredible way. And at this point, we go back in time a little bit to the first few minutes of the episode, because I want to just frame by frame some things and figure out what we're doing in terms of frame ordering and stuff. Okay, so I believe that this whole hand cut thing is on 2s. I don't think it jumps up to 1s or anything, or does anything crazy with like overlay or anything. It is absolutely fantastic, and the eventual morph from one small, chubby hand into one that is much larger, older, and better muscled, you might say. I assume her hand to his and drawing a connection between them, but I don't know. And then sound effects that don't quite fit. If I'm reading or hearing it correctly, this sounded to me like an egg breaking. Because there's that wateriness to it, that squelchiness to it. Doesn't quite sound like a hand cracking or anything. It's different. And that kind of using the wrong sound for particular things is what caused me to pause at 20 minutes or so. Because one, she puts that jar, which we saw containing a liquid, under a fountain, and then something weird happens in it. She drops it, it bounces and doesn't shatter when our expectation is that it will shatter. And the sound that occurs when it bounces is a gong. Suddenly things changed. Interesting. Now the other thing that I want to frame by frame is a couple of the sequence. I have no idea what this is. I assume it's the eponymous egg of the angel. And then these, I assume, are themselves angels, given their halos, given that there seems to be caste among them, maybe. Like there are individuals with multi-halos, there are individuals with halos only in the front. I wonder if that's actually just a part of their armor or something. And I wonder what they're actually made of. They appear to be stone statues, but it's an endless sea of them. And that itself is a part of this thing, and this thing has organs intertwined with it, pipe organs, I mean, and they make a terrible cacophonous screeching sound. Like, the trumpets of Revelation are the trumpets of Revelation, not the cacophonous, awful, demonic wails of Revelation. I do feel that this is a post-apocalyptic world, potentially post-religious apocalypse as opposed to human self-inflicted apocalypse, potentially spiritualist, potentially dealing with death and rebirth of sentient life or something, but I don't think it's that literal. I think it's a lot more vague than that, and intentionally so. But I don't know. I'm sure we're never going to see any real symbols, are we? Like, if this thing had a giant fucking cross on top of it, it would be like, oh, okay, we get it, kinda, it makes kinda sense, but it doesn't, so we don't. The only truly obviously religious symbology is him, waiting in an endless plain, an endless landscape in front of an incomprehensible, partly bone looking, like, look at these like ribs and the curved pieces. They're bones and they have joints, and that's a spine. But then parts of it are purely mechanical and look more than anything like parts of a space station. They're super tech, right? So there's this biomechanical fusion of super tech. And then that thing, which quite reminds me of the boss from Kirby, but whatever. Doesn't really matter. And then him. He darkens. Who are you? And I don't think she's asking him because they don't know each other. I think she's asking us. So I think that's our question. How does this reflect upon us? How much of us is in this film, and how much of this film is us? I don't know yet. We're only 20 minutes in. Just wanted to stop and talk about some thoughts, because I'm gonna be engrossed while this is going. Okay. I'm gonna jump forward a lot. Lots of scenes of incredible landscapes. Oh, I want one shot of her hair. Any shot of her hair. Yeah, this one works because it's bonkers. This flowing shot. Okay, all on twos. I thought so. Just wasn't entirely sure because it looks so fluid. So fucking fluid. I have no idea what this thing is where we're diving into those roots. That this is all drawn and it flows so well is insane. What is the darkness that covers her? I don't know. Okay. I think the clearest thing is that this is not going to be a film that we'll have answers to, and thus I don't think it's a film that we should necessarily ask a lot of questions about. But I do want to start from here where she refills this jar, because things occur strangely when she does. So we're going back to 19 minutes or so. Let's continue this. Okay, so she fills the jar. It is full, and then it all drips out of what we knew was a sealed jar. She looks through it, and it appears to be entirely full. She looks down, and it's like a coating on some of the inside. She goes to drink from it, and the sound cuts out. She drops it, and a gong, and it is empty. Thanks, bud. I'm pausing there. Just gonna go brush up a little bit on the Noah story. Pretty sure the dove comes back after 7 days with an olive branch in its head. That's why the dove and olive branch is like a symbol of things. Pretty sure. Just pretty sure. Pretty sure that they don't just remain on the ark forgetting. Also, the giant eye thing. Equivalent of ark? So this is a world that, at least in the mythology that he knows, but he says, I saw the bird. This is a situation where there are intentional contradictions occurring, and trying to wiggle out of them isn't going to be worthwhile. Contradictions can create beauty in and of themselves. And I think that in the same way that a montage and juxtaposition can create thoughts and ideas just by showing two scenes next to each other, contradictions in thought, for example, that this guy seems to have seen the bird and that was so long ago. Interesting. That there is obviously society and, well, that there was post-flood if there was a flood. But the thing is that the flood has continued and continued. It only rains every night. It just rains and rains. Water, water, water. This is what's remained? But grown out of it, it's sensible and it doesn't make sense. Nor does the idea of the great tree. But it also does. Shit, we're ringing true in symbol and metaphor that's so many layers deep. That it's so muffled, right? Like it rings true and it's the right note, but it's muffled by layers and layers and layers of obfuscation and darkness and shadow and the incomprehensible. I think Cthulhu Gothic is still a pretty good place to be on this one. But anyway, I'm going to go brush up on the Noah story really quick. Yeah, because we never, that's the other interesting thing about his recounting of the story. He never mentions Noah until the flood has already occurred, right? It's just, and only Noah and those he had brought on the ark were the only ones, right? There's no mention until we get to the ark floated, and all flesh died upon the earth, and every man, only Noah was left, and eventually he sends out the bird. There's no mention of the reason that Noah was chosen, right, because of his boundless piety. There's no mention of the previous experiences that Noah had with God, which do exist in the story. It's a whittled down version, and there's no redemption to it at all. We're left to infer from nothing. There's no implication. We're left to infer how Noah was left, right? And of course, there's also the Mesopotamian Great Flood story, and there are multiple other Great Flood stories. But because we specifically mentioned Noah, it has to be the Judeo-Christian version. All right, I'm just going to read Genesis 5:32 and onward. Please, not the New International Version. Can I get the King James, please? I really prefer KJV. Thank you. I really hate the NIV. I don't read the Bible a lot. I have read the Bible in both parts of it in multiple translations a couple of times because it's a fascinating document to me. I'm not religious and I don't read the Bible often, but when I do, King James, please. Okay, so God looked upon the earth and it was corrupt. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth, make thee an ark. Yeah, there's no, but with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee, and of every living thing. There's none of that here. After 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. And the same day were all of the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were open. So it's exactly those lines. I thought so. I thought it was a direct quote. They and every beast, etc., etc., etc. And the waters prevailed, and the high hills were covered, and every living substance and every flesh was destroyed. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent forth a raven, which went to and fro. And also he sent forth a dove to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest, and came back. 7 days later. Yeah. He sent he sent the dove forth out of the ark, and the dove came in to him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And he stayed yet other 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. And then he is ordered by God to bring back. So he sends out the dove thrice. Yes? The dove is sent out thrice in the original story. Sends the dove, she finds nothing and returns. Sends the dove, she finds an olive leaf and returns, and no one knows that the waters are abated. 7 days later, he sends forth the dove once more, which does not return. Shit, yo, there's a plot hole in Genesis. Who knew? Who would have expected? Yeah, there's actually no mention of what happened when the dove does not return. Because you gotta assume that the dove's mate is still on the boat, right? Oh, shit. But in this story, he only sends out the dove twice, and it never returns with an olive branch. And so they forget and remain on the ark, forgetting a world underwater. A bird and a world sunken underwater. Okay. But that's a thing. That is certainly a thing. And VLC is broken. Okay, that's okay. I have to go use the bathroom anyway, so this is perfect. I'm gonna take a break thingy. Be back. So I had a thought while I was in the bathroom. I think I'm gonna end up doing pretty much 2 discussions for this one, not separately or anything, but one of them is just gonna be like my take, and then the other one's gonna be like, I'm gonna do a shitload of research and do like a survey on what other people think this thing is, because I feel like you could probably spend a year or 2 just thinking about this film, just for fun. Anyway, let's continue onward.